So once we've done the presence, I'm going to look at white balance. I like to have my basic exposures and my basic texturing and clarity done before I do the white balance. So what is the white balance? Well, white balance basically, when you shoot a RAW file, the way the colors are interpreted is not really set in stone. So for example, here I can add some blue to my photo. Wait for it, blue, 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 very blue. Or I can go the opposite and I can add some yellow to the photo. And you're like, yeah, but so it's based on a scale which is called a Kelvin scale that goes from basically 2000 all the way to 50,000. And on the right side, it's very yellow, and on the blue side, it's very blue. Okay, now what does that mean? Well, you see, there's a lot of different kind of lights, the sunlight, and you've got practical lights from tungsten light and street lights and all that stuff, and they all have different values. Basically, to help you, you've got different settings. So, for example, daylight setting is a good setting to start. Daylight is going to make it very blue. It's going to be 5,500 plus. Roughly there. And then you have, for example, shade, which is now 7,500. So the whole photo is going to be a lot warmer. And then you got, for example, cloudy. Actually, sorry, I made a mistake. It's first cloudy, which is a bit warmer. And then you got shade, which is a lot warmer. Okay, that's supposed to be when it's under shade. There's no really rules for it. I usually, because I love to change my white balance locally. Again, I don't like to do global adjustments. But daylight is a good starting point because you see, if you make everything like shade, everything like yellow, which what I used to do back in the day, and I used to add a bit of magenta, and that was like my formula, and I was done. It's nice, but it's not very natural. Often real life is more complex than just one color everywhere. Usually you have some blues and it goes into the orange. So I like to start out with a good daylight. It's a good starting point for me. Sometimes I add a little bit of magenta. But that, please tell no one. It's kind of like one of my secret sauce. Okay, now the other one is tint. Okay, so on the left side, it adds a lot of green. And on the right side, it adds a lot of magenta. Okay, now this one, usually, if you use, for example, the daylight, you will see daylight, it's at plus 10. Cloudy, it's at like plus 10 also. And shade, it's at plus 10. So this slider hardly changes. There's a good formula I like to do on a lot of cityscape and landscape is daylight and then go to 20 in the magenta. It just adds, it's just a look that I love, But you can go the opposite. You can go, oh no, I want the greens. I love the greens, Honestly, I'll tell you the truth, white balance is a complete subjective. The way everybody perceives color is kind of different. The way the emotion you want to create. But if you want to stay as more true as possible to how you experience it, usually the best way to go about it is going to either daylight, cloudy, and shade. And one of these three, except when it's a night photo. Well, I'll show you later on when I do a night photo. And then you can add a bit of green or magenta, based on what you remember. You have to sort of take a mental picture of how it was and try to recreate it in Lightroom, which is really tricky. But so I have this good formula, daylight and just a little bit like plus 20 of magenta. That's a good starting point for most of my golden hour, sunset type of photos. When it comes to night, it's a whole different ball game, but we'll cover that later on in all the different projects we're going to be doing, because we're going to be doing lots of projects. Anyway, so that's the white balance. But remember, after all, it's completely an artistic decision. You can try to go, as real as how you remember it, or you can go crazy and creative. Sky is the limit. I'm just giving you this kind of formula to help you get started.